So we're going to run down a list of speakers here, and we're going to start on my left. We're pleased to welcome Brian Bauer, who is a repeat attendee here quite often. And Resynergy is his company. I think you'll be very excited to see what he has developed. For those of you who were here last year, I think it'll be a refresh on some of the advancements, and I'm excited to hear from that, or from Brian for that. Oriana Bretschger is from formerly Aquam Technologies, but it's now Aquacyl?
Aquacycle.
Excuse me, Aquacycle. Sorry. These are creative names. I'm not a creative guy. A good friend from the underwater world, Sergio Gamberni, from CEO of Nemo's Garden. Julie Hamden from the she's environmental director of the Marine Construction Technologies, Boss Pilings. And then Jim Mullen, CEO of Earthwise Sorbents. So I'm going to go in sequence as I had just introduced you. I'm going to give Brian the podium first, and we'll just go through a brief rundown on what is the technology, how does it relate to the UN Decade of Ocean Science and the Sustainable Development Goals, and then we're going to open up for questions and comments and really get at the points of innovation here. So, Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to commend NOAA for, I come from Northern California. There's big power shutdowns right now and so forth. We had 2 of them and a couple evacuations in the last 3 months. And they predicted a month ago that there would be shutdowns again, there would be big winds, and sure enough, it's happening as we speak. So I'm glad to be in the rain and not in the fire zone. So anyway, so completely separate. Our company is, we take waste plastic. There's a lot that's out there that's not recyclable. You're very aware of that. People aren't taking the plastic. It ends up everywhere. We've got a really compact technology that can be placed in 20 and 40-foot containers and put right at the source of where the plastic is coming from. So because it's economic and it uses really super efficient microwave as the heating source, it's profitable. So important to talk about making money for developing countries, for all over the world, in the sense that imagine people were motivated to clean plastic instead of just throwing it out and dumping it. So it's like dollar bills floating in the river or in the ocean. You wouldn't see that if it was money. But that's kind of a way to think of it when you look at a technology that takes plastic and converts it at 25 cents a gallon, and you know it sells between $2 and $4 a gallon as a diesel fuel. So what we make is very low cost diesel fuel, it's ultra low sulfur, and the greenhouse gas emissions are half, or it's about 60% less than if you were to drill and refine in a traditional way. So very economic, very compact, and go anywhere it needs to go. What we're able to do, go to the next slide. All right. So basically, this is a visual depiction of it. Yeah, it goes right into a 20-foot container. A 40-foot container is a 5-ton per day. And the way we address the SDGs is climate change-wise, again, 60% less than regular diesel fuel production. So that's of the greenhouse gases. So we can take that, and we know that diesel engines are going to, we don't want them to be around forever, but they will be around for quite a while. Ships today, you use bunker fuel, sea bunker fuel, that it can be so much better with this ultra low diesel fuel. Now, if we put these right on ships, they can generate the fuel to clean. So we've been working with so many different cleaning companies and organizations. There's smaller ships, there's big scooping ideas. There's about 12 different companies that we're working with. They gather and we collect and can process. So a year ago, we talked about having our first unit. We're announcing now that we have pilot on land, and next year, this time, hopefully we have a number of these in the ocean, on shores and different islands, as well as small ships. So that's a basic overview. We definitely clean land, we clean water, and then partnering, as I mentioned, globally, one of the missions is to make this small enough, and you can with microwave, small enough so villages all over the world can economically use these. So we're looking at global grants from Rotary clubs to other organizations that they can put a few $100,000 together, that's on the low end, to actually have these in small towns, small villages, and people be motivated to collect the plastic. So that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We'll invite Oriana next. Go ahead, please.
Thanks. All right. Thanks very much for having me here today. My name is Oriana Bretschger. I'm the CEO and founder of AquaCycle. We are headquartered here in San Diego, but we have manufacturing in South Korea, Tijuana, as well as here. And we provide on-site wastewater treatment for some of the highest strength organic wastewaters that are out there, mostly produced in food and beverage. So every gallon of beer results in 4 to 6 gallons of wastewater. Every barrel of wine, 5 barrels of wastewater. And this is wastewater that cannot easily go down the drain. It's highly concentrated in organics, and so it has to be treated on site or hauled away. We offer a portable modular solution that plug and plays within a facility, can remove 90 to 99% of that carbon, recover direct electricity at the same time, so we power ourselves, and then enable on-site water reuse for customers with post-treatment technologies. So we also eliminate primary sludge, which is another big problem in wastewater situations. Up to 80% of the solids that come in, we break down. And so ultimately, we're starting as industrial pretreatment with food and beverage industries, helping them achieve their sustainability goals. But we can also provide wastewater treatment in a sustainable way for emerging markets as a decentralized mechanism for sanitation. And we have been proving this out with the US Navy over the last year on Oahu, which has been very exciting. Maybe.
Great.
Wait for it.
Trying to be patient.
You lift it.
There we go. All right, so just a couple pictures for you to see here. So up on the upper left, that's the system that we've been working on in Tijuana. That's been installed since 2016 and running, treating residential sewage. We are actually producing irrigation quality water according to World Health Organization standards here, and that water is being used to irrigate the park. Our system, as I mentioned, is very scalable and modular. We do have a booth here, so you can come and see the hardware. But these are small reactors about the size of a car battery that we stack together like Legos inside a standard shipping container. And then we can send those shipping containers anywhere in the world to provide industrial pretreatment or decentralized sanitation. And our goal, really, our mission, is sanitation and water for all. And so what you see in the bottom right is our vision for a sustainable future relative to providing sanitation, addressing SDG 6, as well as SDG 5, where it is typically up to the women in most of these areas that we work in emerging markets to manage water and sanitation in the home. And so we want to be able to provide sanitation and water in an accessible way so that women don't spend a full day or half a day gathering water and managing water in the home, and can go to school and be a part of economic development within their communities. So that is our ultimate goal. We've been gaining some traction throughout the industry. We're installed in 3 different states in Tijuana, and we're excited to make wastewater treatment better. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Oriana. Quite possibly traveling the greatest distance to be here. Sergio,
Yes.
welcome.
Okay, first of all, I apologize for my typical Italian accent, but I am a proud American citizen since a few years. Now, I am here to explain what is the Nemo's Garden and how it works and what are the targets. But first of all, the world population will grow up a lot. And we are expecting 2 billion more people within 2050. And we need water, fresh water, and we need new sources of agriculture. Now, the global warming is generating a change, and that makes bring to me a question. Why don't we look to the ocean for a possible solution? A great challenge. Now, Nemo's Garden, I am a scuba diving manufacturer. So I am a chemical engineer. I am manufacturing full face masks, communication unit, personal protection equipment. So I asked myself, can I do something? And is there any option for the future to change a little bit the situation and to bring new possibilities and even new employment and new jobs? So I looked to agriculture and I said, what do we need to have the growing of crops? We need water, fresh water. We need a stable temperature. We need the sunlight, and we need protection against bugs. So at that point, Nemo's Garden started. And Nemo's Garden is an underwater lab. It's an underwater lab made by 6 domes made by acrylic. They are installed at around 6 to 12 meters, so equivalent of 30 feet. And they are anchored to the bottom of the sea and full of air. Now, what is happening? It's happening that we have the sunlight going through the water and making the evaporation of the salt water. The salt water becomes fresh water, and we collect that through condenser and through the internal part of the domes. So we have the fresh water, the first point. Secondly, we have a very stable temperature because in the ocean during the night and the day, the temperature doesn't change a lot. So it's like a greenhouse, very well protected against the bugs too. And at that point, we have the option to grow plants in a air atmosphere. The domes have approximately 2,000 liters of air that we fulfill at the beginning of the activity. And then they are staying underwater, and they created a space for growing of typical crops. Now, I would like to go to the second slide so you can see a little bit better. How we grow the crops. We grow the crops thanks to the hydroponic systems. So we do not bring soil. We just use the technology available on the land. And the crops and the fresh water that we produce is collected in tanks. And from these little tanks, we bring through, thanks to the pumps, to the top of a kind of spiral that is installed inside of the dome. For gravity, the water goes down, and it's irrigating the seeds that we put in this spiral, where we have seed beds. Now, the system is self-sustainable, even because our project is based on where may we install this kind of domes, where there is no fresh water, where there is a very critical change of temperature in between day and night, and so where the conventional agriculture cannot grow. Now, the energy that we use is primarily coming from a wind wheel and from sunlight, so from solar panels. So the energy that we use, it's made by the system by itself. Now, one question that you may have is, but is it affordable, this system, this technology? The question is still open. But what we found, and it is in the bottom right of the slides, is that there is a change in the characteristic of the plants. The plants are growing differently because they are growing in a pressurized atmosphere. And this is making a modification in their morphology. Then the sunlight is going to the blue frequency, and the blue frequency is changing the characteristic of the plants too. So the consequence is that this is a publication of the University of Pisa that is in English, available to everybody. The consequence is that the essence oil of the plants and the characteristic of plants are more concentrated. Now, are we going to have food? Yes and no. I am still looking to options for the future to grow with our system. I want to remind that this is a patent system, but it's totally 100% self-financed by my company at the present time. So our resources are the typical resources of a private company. But the future is food, but even the possibility to use this new system for growing vegetables that change their characteristic and they are more powerful, medical application and pharmaceutical application. Of course, I listed some additional points. Nemo's Garden became, and it is a great attractive point. People are coming because they want to see this kind of space base underwater. It's increasing the economy of the place where it has been installed. It is even respecting the environment because where we installed the Nemo's Garden, there was nothing. And now there are 7 times more animals and life than before. So this is something that, for what we are proud. We are looking to create new jobs, new challenge. Yes, this is a typical American dream. Okay, making something that seems incredible, but might become our future. Because I'm old, but I have to watch to the future, and I have to generate option to the new generation. Thanks for my, excuse me for mistake.
Thank you very much, Sergio. Julie, the floor is yours.
So I'm just going to give you an overview of noise pollution in oceans, this particular technology that's been developed in Seattle to address that issue, and then also touch on the sustainable development goals that this technology targets. In a nutshell, noise pollution is an invisible form of pollution from our perspective, but it's a very tangible form of pollution for ocean habitats and ocean species. Ocean pollution or underwater noise pollution has been increasing substantially over the last several decades, in a large part because our use of oceans has also increased. Noise in the ocean stems from shipping, stems from oil and gas exploration, construction, boating, any number of different anthropogenic uses. There's so much noise now in ocean basins that they actually call it a fog. The underlying or baseline noise levels are so loud that it's actually inhibiting the ability of species to communicate and also to navigate. If you, for a moment, put yourself in the fins of an underwater species, it's a very light, limited environment. And so most of the organisms in the ocean have learned to become, or have evolved to become, hearing specialists. And so they rely very heavily upon sound to communicate and navigate within their environment. This fog that we've placed them in has made it ever more difficult to survive on a day-to-day basis and has increased their overall stress levels to the point that their viability is being questioned. So our technology, how does it address this particular issue? One of the stressors that is introduced into ocean environments is construction noise, and in particular, pile driving is very, very loud. In air, noise dissipates quite quickly. So if you struck a pile with a hammer, that noise might dissipate within a mile of that pile. Water is very dense, and that noise travels much farther and much faster underwater than it does in air. Underwater noise associated with pile driving travels tens of meters, hundreds of meters, in comparison to in air that might extend just a mile. In an ocean basin, if there were no land masses to intercept it, it could easily travel hundreds of miles. So if you happen to live in the ocean and you have any air-filled organs, those organs are affected by that pressure wave as it moves through the ocean basin. As it passes through those membranes, it expands and contracts them. Just like our hearing, when we hear a sound, the reason why we interpret that as a sound is because the membranes in our hearing structure basically move in response to that pressure wave. If you live in the ocean, that is fundamentally impactful. Our solution is very simple. We've made the piles themselves quiet. It's a double-walled pile that isolates that pressure wave from the surrounding environment with air. This technology reduces in-water noise during pile driving by 90%, and as a result, it also reduces the insonified or impacted area by an equivalent amount. So this next slide just gives you a graphic indication of what that looks like. The white circumference surrounding the blue dot indicates how far out into the environment noise would travel to a biological threshold. So if I were a marbled murrelet, which is a diving seabird, if I were in that white circle, the noise levels would be high enough that they would affect my behavior and potentially affect my hearing structures. The blue dot indicates how far out into the environment noise would travel using our technology. So our piles are a win-win situation in that they truly reduce the impacted area associated with pile driving, which limits the number of species exposed, and it also limits the amount of noise going into the environment. Noise is unique in that when noise stops, the pollution goes away. So if you can confine how far out into the environment noise extends, you literally are stopping pollution at its source. You see across the top, there are a number of sustainable development goals that this technology targets. Obviously, this technology targets virtually all of the goals that are associated with infrastructure, with sustainable development, with life underwater, and also life on land. Of course, as Michael said, if it's wet, it's blue. So our technology isn't just targeting ocean waters, but also fresh waters as well.
Well done.
Thank you, Julie. Jim? Floor's yours.
Getting old.
You never.
What's up, everybody? Hi, everybody. My name's Jim Mullen. Welcome to typically sunny San Diego. And God knows we need some beautiful blue, clear water down here. I'm going to mention something a little bit different than you see on this slide just for a second. I'm humbled to work for two incredible companies. One is called Arctic Foam. The other one is called Earthwise Sorbents. Arctic Foam is really cool, really playful, and amazing. We're doing amazing things for the environment. We're the leading surfboard foam manufacturer, pretty much one of them in the world. We build for the biggest brands in the world. You'll see two surfboards in the other hall that are up for auction. I want everyone to write down numbers and a lot of money for them. They're actually built out of algae polyurethane foam. We're the first company in the world to change polyurethane foam in the last 60 years. I hate microphones, that's why I'm backing up from this damn thing. Polyurethane foam hasn't changed. It's made out of petroleum. We're surfers, we love the ocean, so we want to protect the ocean. Surfboards are not sustainable for the ocean. We figured out a way to make them sustainable for the ocean. We are now using algae oil and other organic components to build high-performance surfboard foam and bioresins for the major brands in the world. It's significant that I mentioned that. Our factory's in Ensenada, and it was the cause of Earthwise Sorbents. In fact, my partner's sitting out there today, and he's the one that created all these problems and troubles that I have to speak about every day. So his name's Andrew. I'm looking at him right now. And I'm blessed to have him as a partner. Earthwise Sorbents was a complete kind of mistake. We had an oil spill in our factory. I know some of you guys have heard this boring story before. And my partner, in a sort of a panic, we have a lot of hydraulic fluid going everywhere, he grabbed a bag of surfboard foam dust and threw it on it. What could have taken 3 or 4 hours to clean up, they cleaned up in 10 or 20 minutes. Polyurethane foam happens to be one of the best absorbents for oil and chemicals in the water and on land. No one uses it because it's too expensive. And we really now know, because we were very naive, that we really can't use it that much in the water because it could get punctured and now you're cleaning up oil and you're cleaning up foam dust. But we are going to be making it for the DoD, right? It's awesome to put under, big trucks, helicopters, in boats. It's an incredible product. And we can basically take our waste and bring it into a new product. As we went down the line, try to get through this real quickly, we found that polypropylene is used 95% around the world. Other organic sorbents are out there, but nothing. The two top ones are polyurethane, dust, and polypropylene. We searched all over. Polypropylene is made out of petroleum. And typically it's made out of China and then shipped for very cheap all over the world. And they clean up chemicals and oils with petroleum-based products. That made no sense to my team. Why are we cleaning up oil and chemicals with a brand new product made out of petroleum? Petroleum we need in the world, but we need it for what's most importantly needed, not for cleaning up a chemical spill. So we went after it and tried to figure out if we could develop it or partner with someone that could make it. And thankfully, after calling all over the world and no one would do it for us, we found a company in Wisconsin, our partners, MPS, that were willing to go down this crazy path with us. And they were already working on it. And, we're from the surf world. We're from the snowboard, skateboard world. We are salesmen, branding guys, and marketing guys, and they are manufacturers. And I didn't want another carbon footprint. We figured out how to make sorbents to clean up the chemical and oil market with up to 100% repurposed trash. The trash that we all know, it's either going into the dump or going into the oceans. So just to understand, we build a product. All the insulation in your cars are polypropylene. We buy all that now. We recreate a new product to clean up oils and chemicals on land and in the water. I don't think I have another one. I might. So here, you'll see some of our products. We're working with DoD. We're working with Waste Management, Caterpillar, Princess, and Carnival Cruise Lines to get them our new products. We'll start shipping Q1 next year. We've been farming for 2 years in Europe and all over America. We are here to disrupt a big industry. This industry is $20 billion a year just for the product. And they're shipping new product every day. Well, we're going to disrupt it. We're going to be innovative. And we're going to go in there and say, no, we can make this product out of trash. It's as good, if not better than yours. And we're bringing it to the market. And TMA, BlueTech, has helped us introduce us to people all in this room and all over the world, actually, to get in front of the right people to bring this product to light. It's cost effective. It's comparable to anything in the market. And thankfully, we're aligned with TMA and BlueTech. So thank you for your time.
We've just seen a remarkable array of technologies. And not to call anyone out or embarrass anyone, but we did have 5, 6, and 7 of the Sustainable Development Goals called out by several of our participants. So I'm not going to ask our panelists this, but I'm going to ask you this. Where's your business plan? Where is your business plan for the UN decade of ocean science? Because the countries of the world will be asking for new technologies, new opportunities, existing technologies and opportunities in order to further our understanding of the ocean and the complex problems we're trying to solve. And we saw several of them here solved. We're looking at fuel generation. We're looking at water purification and generation. We have plants and feeding people in new and imaginative ways. We have the suppression of underwater sound, which in many cases limits the ability of coastal development to either proceed or limits the ability of coastal development to proceed without impact to sensitive organisms, and the ability to clean up very common occurrences as an oil spill. So these folks have marketed themselves with the synergies of the Sustainable Development Goals. If you think back to the first panel, where you saw investors, banks, and large organizations globally investing, pension funds and the likes, the finance world tracking Sustainable Development Goals as a driver, are you marketing your wares along the alignment of the Sustainable Development Goals? Some countries are farther ahead than others, but I think all will be catching up with this trend, and I think if you put the two panels together, there's a clear message. So if I can ask the panelists the first question, this is remarkably innovative stuff. That's a technical term, but it's remarkably innovative stuff. Do you see yourself as an innovator, or do you see yourself as an ocean innovator? I guess part of that was what was the motivation that got you here, but this is remarkable stuff that you've got to offer to the market. And maybe we'll just go one side to the next. And Jim, since you were last to speak, let's start with you.
I was hoping you'd start. Oh, that's fine. I guess that my answer to that would be, and you know, some of my colleagues have said it, I love the ocean. I love the world. I have 2 little boys. I want to try to make a difference while I'm here. Even if it's a smidge, I'm cool with that, right? So innovation in repurposed and recycled products, or what my colleagues are creating, I think is creating better oceans, better sustainability. And I think our age group, all of us, I'm getting old, so it's our turn to step up and try to do what we can to make this world a little bit better place. And I think technology's there. I think bullheaded people like me are there. I think scientists like Julie are there, and some of my colleagues up here that, you know, everyone says, no, you can't do it, and we're doing it. And we're not gonna stop until we do it.
Thank you, Jim. Julie.
I think, as is the case with many technologies, it starts in one arena and ends up having applications in others. So I would, in answer to your question, say our company is an ocean innovation company. We were responding to a direct need that development agencies had in the state of Washington with regard to constructing their projects. And it's a perfect example of a triple helix approach to addressing the issue of underwater noise during pile driving. What's interesting about this technology, though, is it reduces noise in water because it reduces vibration. That reduction in vibration has a lot of applications on land as well. So as infrastructure becomes more and more inundated by the ocean, and in areas, for example, where there are unstable soils or there are historical foundations, or research institutions where you can't have ground vibrating during construction, this application or this technology has amazing applications in those situations as well, where you're trying to reduce vibration to surrounding resources. And similarly, it works in water, and that's what we were targeting, but it reduces vibration not just in water, but in the sediment, like I just described, and in the air as well. So when it comes to community-based noise and cities needing to densify and develop in order to accommodate population growth, needless to say, a lot of our foundations are going to have to be piling-based in order to deal with some of the changes in climate change, but that's a really noisy proposition unless you have technologies that can also help to reduce in-air noise during construction. So it started in the ocean, but I think it's creeping onto land, like so many things in evolution.
Thank you. Sergio.
I feel me an explorer. I have a curiosity to, and I want to learn. Innovator, ocean innovator. The other people may judge me an innovator or not. I bring you an example. When we work in the biosphere, we are removing our mask and we are breathing the air that is inside. So the CO2 grows. And we found that the system is self-sustainable because at a certain time, the CO2 goes down because the plants are taking, they are heating, they are breathing the CO2 and they are transforming it in O2. Now, exploration and to be humble, like you said at the beginning of your speech, and learning and putting together the skills of the people, from biologists, oceanography, from chemistry, from physics, electronics. I feel an explorer, someone that is trying to understand and make something good, but with the help of everybody else.
Thank you. Oriana?
Yeah, I think the topic of innovation versus ocean innovation, I think they're directly connected in all of what we do. So for AquaCycle, we are point source remediation and providing sanitation so that these runoffs and these point source pollutions do not make their way into the ocean or any other receiving water body. And so it's exciting to be a part of that. I think my journey to this was started very young, since I grew up in the rural Southwest with sometimes very limited access to water and limited access to flush toilets. So this had a great impact on my life. So it's a pleasure to be able to work towards something, to be able to bring a higher quality of life, as well as social impact to some of the bigger companies that we work with, and excited to see that adoption happen.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, so a lot like Oriana, I kind of think of it as a watershed. You look at watersheds from the top all the way into the oceans, and then the oceans the rivers, they feed the oceans. And we're all pretty familiar that the plastics are coming from the river mouths out into the ocean, and then they make their way all over the place. So we really kind of think of them interrelated, and we're innovating for the oceans at the same time as land. It's actually a lot more profitable on land, and there's a lot more nonprofits cleaning the oceans, cleaning the ocean shores right now. We just balance those and we sell to those differently, but both of them are profitable in their own way, and that helps drive everything. But I would think slightly more not on the ocean, but I get hundreds of emails every month on cleaning up the ocean, just because of all the things we see. Yeah.
So if I could distill that, it seems that each one of you innovators had a root of cause as to why you went in the direction you did. Maybe your discovery was serendipitous, but the application was in the back of your mind. I find that very interesting. Something else I just throw out for everyone's consideration is when you look at prizes, for example, prizes in innovation, sometimes the solutions come from areas that are very much outside of where you started. But I don't know that you could really pin anyone down here and say they worked comfortably within the domain that they were used to in order to develop these innovations. These innovations came from outside of your normal space. And I think that's worthy of note, and maybe that's a signature of an innovator. Let me just pause and see if anyone has a question they would like to ask the panelists here. Just please put your hand up if you do, otherwise I'll continue along here. All right. A question then for the group as we're looking at sustainability, sustainable development goals, and inspirational disruptive technology. Was sustainability the motivator or the genesis of your inquiry that led to your discoveries in your technology, or did it happen to be that it is sustainable, notwithstanding the fact that you went on a journey to discover? So maybe Brian, we'll start on your end.
Well, I was in the telecom industry, which for most of my career, and things kind of totally imploded in the year 2000. And I was working in international marketing, and my buddy was in Japan at the time. And he was kind of like left out in Japan, and he says, well, we better start looking, I've got to start looking at other technologies. So he started looking, how can we start impacting the world, look at all kinds of green technologies. And the one plastic conversion in a real clean way to oil was the most attractive one he had out there. And he just kept pounding me to come run a company for him to go do that. And I finally sold my chip company and got out of that, hopefully forever, and do more impactful things. So it was very motivating to have him come and us join right at that time. Yep.
So I started my career in aerospace and building missile guidance systems. So I took a turn to a place that I like much more now. So part of that journey was going back to school, and in my graduate work, we were studying how a certain type of bacteria is able to breathe rocks. So move electrons to rocks and transform minerals in the environment. And in that process, actually, a proxy is electricity production if they're not moving electrons to a mineral. And so we were studying how bacteria make electricity and then what the impact of that process is in the environment. And while I was doing the studies, the majority of the papers and publications that were out there were, oh, this is a great technology for energy recovery and waste to energy reuse. But the reality is it's a biological system that's not going to give up that much of its energy. But this relationship between energy recovery and metabolism was what I really linked up to. So our system uses natural bacteria that have this process to make electricity. But the more electricity that's produced actually relates back to how fast they treat water. Because when we're drawing a current, we're moving electrons away from these bacteria. We make them breathe faster in this process, and so they're eating faster in this process. And so it was in my graduate work where I really connected, how this bacterial action can really do more in water than in energy. And our goal is to be energy neutral, to power ourselves, but we're never going to be driving your car or replacing your solar panels. But we can speed up wastewater treatment and provide a point source treatment and sanitation process in a way that no other technology can.
Sergio?
We try to protect the ocean. I mean, anytime that we touch the nature, we modify something. And we need to be very careful, because in any case, the equilibrium, the balance of everything is very delicate. So yes, to be self-sustainable, using algae to fertilize our crops, using the sunlight to create the energy. Yes, that has been one of the key points, because again, anything that we touch, we modify. And we have seen the results right now with the weather change. And so that's it. That is our goal, is to create a project absolutely self-sustainable and in respect of the nature.
My background is in regulatory compliance, and the vast majority of my clients are in the transportation sector, both on land and maritime. And so the regulations, I think, environmental regulations are established to help to strike the right balance between our built environment and environmental conservation. And what was happening in my professional life was that in order to protect the environment, the restrictions on projects became so stringent that, in fact, they were no longer constructible. And so what was clear to me was that there needed to be new technology infused into that equation that could essentially allow a win-win situation where not only did it protect the environment, but it also allowed for needed infrastructure expansion and repair to occur. So I think our origins are around sustainability, and technological innovation came about as a necessity in order to strike that right balance between infrastructure and environmental protection.
Jim?
Could you ask the question one more time so I don't go way off left base? Which I do all the time, so go ahead. Just saying.
I'll be your straight man.
Yeah, you know it.
Was sustainability the target, or was sustainability an additional benefit of the discovery of your technology?
the environment was number one, right? And then our technology at this stage of the game in my life, like I said before, I want to make products that are sustainable for the earth. I also really find it very, very important to save the oceans. 70% of the world's oxygen is created by the ocean. 70% of the world's oxygen is created by algae, right? Without the oceans, we're all gone. So I think it's the number one, project that we all need to put our heads in, right? And really focus on, like you were saying. I mean, my favorite show when I was a kid was Jacques Cousteau. It still is. I lived and breathed by it. I never missed one episode. And now today I'm in a position helping run companies that I think I can make a difference. So yeah, sustainability was what it's about. If we're going to make a product, I want to make it sustainable for the world.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Another round just in case we have questions. Question, please.
Hi, Ann Carpenter, Braid Theory. So all of your companies are all at various stages of commercialization. And while we talk about sustainable development goals, there's also the flip side of a sustainable business model. So my question to all of you is, what are the barriers you're facing now that you have to actually scaling your solution into the marketplace? And two, what is your ask for this audience? Because it's a pretty powerful audience.
Who would like to begin?
I can begin.
Go right ahead.
So we're real close to scaling up. We have 1-ton systems that are working great, and we want to make multiple 5-ton systems. Probably the biggest challenge, I talked to Betty Yee after her talk there, and it's things like California regulation. I think there are a lot of smart people in the state and all over the world. Everybody treats new technologies differently, so it's a matter of good collaboration and education of the capabilities of our system so we can scale where we would love to. We'd love to do it here in California, where it's one of the cleanest countries in the world. It's the 5th largest country, right? Anyway, we can do a lot from here, and I'd love to start here. And I'm coordinating with the guys from Norway. Just the collaboration, what we're doing with TMA and collaborating with different companies and countries, that's fantastic. We're all in a great role that way.
Yeah, so we were founded in 2016, and we're it's still a startup, but on the verge of scale. So we're revenue generating with large customers, ready to roll out in some of the larger scale units with these customers in the next couple of years. We operate on a service model, so we don't sell equipment. We sell a service plan with a performance guarantee. So our challenge is always in the funding, right? So we have to carry the cost of goods until we can recover that cost over the course of the service plan. And also because we're a hardware company, we work in water. These are slow sales cycles. While we are in California and there's a lot of support here, fundraising can be a challenge in the space because we don't fit to a typical VC model where you're going to exit in 5 years with 100x return. So that's always a challenge in fundraising. I think on the regulatory side as well, we're starting specifically addressing food and beverage as industrial pretreatment because we can fall under an existing permit, right? If we have to go out and become permitted on our own as a distributed wastewater treatment system for sanitation in the US, there are a lot of hurdles that we have to cross. And we are in that process of permitting in San Bernardino County, and that's going well, but that permit in San Bernardino County doesn't count to San Diego County, doesn't apply to Napa, doesn't apply to Sonoma. We have to go through the permitting process every county we go to, and then outside of California, it's the same thing. So that's a difficult place to start, and while regulations are helping drive the permitting process to be a little more accessible to early stage companies, there's still work to do there.
If I understand the question is what kind of barriers we are finding. The barriers are generated by the time we are living. People are looking for something easy to understand and with a very fast return of the investment. So it's just a question to create a credibility and to have patience. The difficulties are to be patient, to create the visibility, and to not expect immediately, for example, that there will be hundreds of underwater farms. It's necessary some time to change our image and accept the easiest solution, that is to create an entertainment, to create a place that is very attractive. But it doesn't mean that you have to forget the final target. And so it's a combination of understanding the expectation of the people and to be consistent in the primary target that is really much bigger but very difficult to be understood by the majority of the people. So the barriers are many and are all inside of the typical personal characteristic of our time.
I would say the barriers that we are encountering are twofold. One would be that the maritime and land-based construction industry is quite a conservative industry and tends to see piles in terms of material costs. So it's working with the construction industry to look at cost savings over the entire project delivery, savings in monitoring costs, savings in the operational costs of a shorter construction timeline if you can drive more piles per day because each pile is quieter than a standard pile. So I think it's sort of re-educating or rethinking how you look at project costs, identifying more opportunities for pilot projects so that the construction industry gains familiarity and confidence in a new technology. It hasn't been an area with a whole lot of innovation, so there's a little bit of hesitation to adopt a new technology. And the second challenge that we're sort of hitting up against is regulations that aren't particularly conducive to encouraging innovation to realize environmental benefits. And so I think there's opportunity for working with this group of people and in a triple helix sort of way to work with regulators and innovators and academia to really identify achievable performance standards that are not based on already demonstrated and utilized technologies, but on incoming technologies that actually have a completely new array of performance standards that could be achieved if only they were deployed.
Well, I can't say it that good, so that's not going to happen. I'll be really blunt with you. Two for me. Smart money, smart investment, almost impossible to get for innovative, disruptive technologies. Love that term. Investors don't love it. Extremely, extremely difficult to find the right investor and the right people to get behind products like this, right? It's unproven. You don't have a cash flow model. Our scalability in our company, Earthwise, no problem. I partnered with one of the largest manufacturers, the largest manufacturer in North America. Not a problem. Finding what I call smart money, good people to invest in you that see the long term and see the change that you can make in the world, very, very, very difficult. Banks, non-existent. Don't even go down that road. And then secondly, I think, I threw out a couple big names, Fortune 250, 500 companies in America, right? Great companies, great people. But the timeline and the sales timeline to get your product in there and start moving it forward into a cash flow model could be 3 years, 4 years, believe it or not. Even though they have sustainability goals, even though they want your product. You go into procurement, good night. It's like going into the cemetery. It's very, very tough. So when you're looking at all these incredible people up here and what they do, I mean, what it takes to actually put the money down and go for it is beyond risk. It is something that you can't even imagine what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And to sit up here and look at all you guys, it's like, yeah, we're about as crazy as it gets, these 4 people up here. It doesn't get any crazier than the 4 people sitting up here because we're going for it. And we need investors that see that and see the discipline and what we've done in our history to say, I'm rolling the dice with these guys. I'm going. So.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick look back here, the innovations in those areas that we have highlighted, you probably didn't see coming unless you're already familiar with their technology. The innovators here and the technology that they bring, you wouldn't see at all coming or going unless TMA BlueTech brought them here and sustains the innovation and the connectivity throughout multiple communities in order to see the light that these folks have shined on their advancements, but also the challenges that are in front of small companies that are developing truly remarkable technologies. But I would offer as well that if you don't adjust your marketing plan, whether you're sitting up here or whether you're sitting out there, towards the notion of the Sustainable Development Goals and where the global community is headed, you're not advantaging yourself as much as you might be able to. So please join me in thanking this panel, and I will turn to my